Tiffany Henyard, once hailed as a rising political star in Dalton, Illinois, now finds herself engulfed in a scandal drawing national attention, and for all the wrong reasons. What began as a career fueled by ambition, optimism, and the promise of renewal has spiraled into a saga of alleged financial abuse, personal enrichment, and multiple federal investigations. Henyard, who once commanded fierce loyalty from both local officials and residents, is now under heavy scrutiny as explosive evidence surfaces, suggesting she has been using taxpayer money to bankroll a luxurious lifestyle, all while her struggling community watches from the sidelines. ###, a meteoric rise. Her rise to power was swift and dramatic. Henyard stepped into the role of mayor following the unexpected death of her predecessor, Frank Zuccarelli. From the outset, her appointment raised eyebrows. But Henyard wasted no time silencing critics, issuing bold promises of progress, prosperity, and a new era for Dalton. For a moment, it seemed like she was delivering. Her vision included initiatives for veterans, programs for seniors, and ambitious plans to jumpstart local economic growth. By 2021, Henyard had firmly cemented her position, winning the mayoral race in a landslide and adding the powerful title of Thornton Township Supervisor to her resume. With both roles under her belt, Henyard's income skyrocketed, reportedly reaching over $200,000 a year. She looked unstoppable. But behind the scenes, cracks had already begun to show. ###, rising power, rising controversy as her political clout grew. So did the controversy surrounding her. Her administration quickly became notorious for its lack of transparency, and whispers of financial mismanagement soon turned into loud, public accusations. Critics accuse Henyard of turning Dalton into a personal empire, where public funds meant for schools, infrastructure, and essential services were being funneled into her own pockets. Those accusations only intensified as more details about her spending habits emerged. Residents were outraged to learn that taxpayer money was allegedly being used to fund lavish vacations, luxury shopping sprees, and even a $500,000 driveway built for her mother's home. Dalton, already burdened by a $3.5 million deficit, watched in disbelief as its leader appeared to live in luxury, while basic municipal services collapsed around them. ### public outrage ignited online. The backlash was immediate. Social media lit up with frustrated residents, calling out what they saw as clear abuse of public trust. Yet even as outrage mounted, Henyard doubled down. She tightened her grip on local power, dismissed the accusations as partisan attacks, and portrayed herself as a victim of political enemies jealous of her success. But then everything took a dramatic turn. ### the FBI steps in a scene that felt ripped from the pages of a political thriller. The FBI raided Henyard's home, reportedly uncovering millions in hidden cash, a bombshell revelation suggesting she had been siphoning public funds to enrich herself. For many in Dalton, this was a breaking point. Any remaining trust they had in their mayor evaporated overnight. But the investigation revealed even more. In just 5 months, Henyard had reportedly spent $67,000 on travel alone, more than what many of her constituents make in an entire year. What began as a simple business trip to Springfield quickly transformed into a full-blown luxury getaway, complete with large entourage, 5-star hotel stays, gourmet meals, and even motorbike joyrides, all funded by the people of Dalton. ### the shameless self-promotion, perhaps the most shameless of all. Henyard allegedly used public money not just for luxury, but to promote herself. Her face was splashed across billboards, not for official city business, not even for a re-election campaign, but simply as a self-glorifying move. At the same time, city streets were crumbling and community programs were starved for funding. Residents watched in fury as their mayor flaunted wealth and self-promotion, while their neighborhoods fell deeper into disrepair. ### the nonprofit scandal, one of the most shocking twist centers on the Henyard Care Foundation, a breast cancer nonprofit Henyard once held up as a symbol of her compassion and leadership. What was supposed to be a noble initiative soon came under fire. Investigators began to suspect that the foundation wasn't helping the sick at all, but instead was bankrolling Henyard's lifestyle. Allegations emerged that charitable donations were being redirected to cover luxury vacations, designer clothes, and yes, even that infamous $500,000 driveway. As more details came to light, public anger boiled over. Not only were taxpayer funds allegedly being abused, but now a charitable foundation created to support vulnerable members of the community was being weaponized for personal gain. ### merchandise money, and mistrust the extravagance didn't stop there. Reports also revealed that city funds were used to produce merchandise, t-shirts, hoodies, promotional materials, all emblazoned with Henyard's name and image. These items were then sold, with profits allegedly going straight into her pockets. When questioned about these purchases, Henyard offered little to no explanation, further fueling suspicions of misuse. Meanwhile, Dalton continued to deteriorate. Asterisk roads went unrepaired. Asterisk community programs dried up. Asterisk the town's debt ballooned. Residents who once believed in Henyard's promises of transformation now felt completely betrayed. Hashtag, a devastating breach of trust at the heart of this crisis is a devastating breach of trust, and a growing belief that Henyard has exploited her position not to serve, but to benefit herself. Critics argue that this isn't just a Dalton issue, but a cautionary tale for the nation. What happens when unchecked power is handed to someone willing to bend the rules for personal gain? Hashtag, the collapse from within, and the FBI's investigation? It's far from over. As federal agents dig deeper into Henyard's spending, rumors swirl that members of her inner circle may be turning on her, cooperating with authorities to protect themselves. If true, the political empire Henyard built may be on the verge of collapse from the inside out. Yet, Henyard hasn't backed down. She continues to call the growing allegations a politically motivated smear campaign, insisting her critics are threatened by her leadership and vision. On social media, she's posted cryptic messages about unity and standing strong. But her efforts to rally support have largely fallen flat. As calls for her resignation grow louder, the community wants more than words. They want answers. Hashtag, a career unraveling Henyard's once promising political career is unraveling in real time. And while she still holds office, the weight of the evidence, the public distrust, and the financial disaster surrounding Dalton are becoming too much to ignore. Tiffany Henyard's time as mayor will likely be remembered not for the bold promises she made, but for the scandal that defined her tenure, a scandal that has left an entire town asking, how did it come to this? Hashtag, a stark warning. What began as a powerful story of political aspiration has now unraveled into a chilling tale of greed, betrayal, and unchecked authority. Henyard's dramatic descent from gray stands as a stark warning about the perils of centralizing too much control in a single individual's hands, and why holding leaders accountable is not just necessary, but essential. The Henyard saga lays bare the fragile line between ambition and duty, showing how the misuse of public office can shatter trust and leave communities scarred. As the federal investigation deepens and fresh revelations continue to emerge, the residents of Dalton are left to grapple with one unsettling question. How deep does this corruption go? Despite her continued defiance, it's becoming harder and harder to believe Tiffany Henyard can hold on to power much longer. Her credibility has taken a hit that may be impossible to recover from, and with the scandal growing by the day, Dalton's future hangs in the balance. In the end, the real legacy of Tiffany Henyard may not be the promises she made, but the hard lessons her downfall has forced the town and the nation to confront once viewed as an ambitious leader with bold plans for Dalton. Illinois. Tiffany Henyard's time in office has spiraled into controversy, chaos, and deep-rooted allegations of corruption. What began as a hopeful chapter for the small town has now become a cautionary tale marked by missed opportunities, financial collapse, and a breakdown of public trust. Henyard's legacy is no longer defined by the promises of progress she once championed, but rather by a painful chapter of betrayal and instability. Once hailed as a bold and energetic leader, she has now become a national symbol of political scandal, her administration plagued by unchecked spending, retaliatory governance, and a failure to responsibly manage Dalton's already fragile finances. Her meteoric rise began after the sudden death of longtime Mayor Frank Zuccarelli. Henyard seized the opportunity, positioning herself as a fresh voice determined to lead Dalton into a new era. She made sweeping promises to uplift the community, with ambitious initiatives targeting veterans, seniors, and local economic development. By 2021, she had solidified her power, winning a landslide election and adding the powerful role of Thornton Township supervisor to her resume, boosting her reported annual income to over $200,000. For a time, it seemed she was unstoppable, but beneath the polished image, cracks began to show. Henyard's administration soon gained a reputation for secrecy, with residents and local officials raising concerns about how public funds were being used. Whispers of financial mismanagement grew into public accusations, and allegations emerged that Henyard was funneling taxpayer money into her own lavish lifestyle, while Dalton streets crumbled and services went underfunded. Among the most glaring examples of excess was Henyard's personal security team, which reportedly drained over $1 million from town funds. This wasn't basic protection. The 24/7 security detail resembled something one might expect for a celebrity or national figure, not the mayor of a small Illinois town. One security officer was shockingly paid $113,000 for just 303 hours over 2 weeks, raising serious questions about inflated timesheets and potential fraud. Meanwhile, residents watch their tax dollars being used not for schools, road repairs, or community programs, but allegedly to fund Henyard's luxury vacations, high-end shopping sprees, and even a $500,000 driveway at her mother's home. Adding insult to injury, public funds were reportedly used to plaster Henyard's face across billboards and merchandise, not for official city business, but for what many saw as pure self-promotion. The fallout didn't stop with financial concerns. Henyard's leadership style became notorious for being fueled by ego and retaliation. Critics say she targeted anyone who challenged her authority. Longtime Thornton Township employee Boeing Thrash claimed he was fired after refusing to replace an attorney with someone handpicked by Henyard's assistant, even after being offered a $100,000 raise. Former trustee Carmen Carlisle, once a loyal ally, emerged as a whistleblower, describing a toxic environment where local police were allegedly used to intimidate critics, even showing up at their homes. Perhaps the most harrowing accusation came from former assistant P. Dukes, who filed a lawsuit alleging sexual harassment on a taxpayer-funded trip. After coming forward, Dukes claimed she was placed on unpaid medical leave, further exposing the alleged culture of fear and retaliation within Henyard's inner circle. As lawsuits stacked up, Dalton's finances descended further into chaos. The town has amassed $2 million in unpaid debt. Basic services like street paving and tree trimming have halted, and no official audit has been conducted since 2021. Reports also tie Henyard's administration to a $3 million scandal involving blank checks, a 21% surge in police costs, and a staggering $65 million shortfall in the general fund. Henyard's once trusted deputy, Keith Freeman, now faces his own legal troubles, charged with bankruptcy fraud and rumored to be cooperating with federal investigators. But even as those closest to her face mounting legal pressure, Henyard continues to deflect blame, pointing fingers at former staffers and political opponents. Her refusal to acknowledge growing public anger has only deepened the divide between Henyard and the community she was elected to serve. Residents who once believed in her promises now find themselves disillusioned, demanding accountability as they watch their town unravel. The financial and reputational damage left in the wake of Henyard's administration runs deep, leaving Dalton to grapple with the long-term consequences of mismanagement, ethical failures, and lost public trust. What was once hailed as bold leadership has now been exposed as a textbook example of power gone unchecked. Henyard's administration, initially seen as a beacon of hope, has collapsed under the weight of scandal after scandal, offering a sobering reminder of the importance of integrity, accountability, and transparency in public office. As federal investigations continue to probe deeper into her spending habits and governing practices, one question looms large. Can Henyard salvage even a shred of her crumbling reputation? The mounting allegations, the legal challenges, and the erosion of public trust suggest that her hold on power may be slipping beyond repair. Dalton now stands at a crossroads, forced to confront the devastating fallout of Henyard's tenure. Her administration has become not only a local scandal, but also a national cautionary tale, a stark warning of what happens when ambition, ego, and unchecked authority overtake the principles of good governance. In the end, Tiffany Henyard's legacy will likely not be remembered for the progress she once promised, but for the scandals that defined her time in office. The people of Dalton, left to pick up the pieces, are now searching for a path forward, one grounded in accountability, reform, and the hope of restoring the trust that was so profoundly broken. Tiffany Henyard's tenure as mayor of Dalton, Illinois, has become a cautionary tale of aggressive retaliation, unchecked spending, and a complete breakdown of fiscal responsibility. What began as a promising chapter of change and ambition has descended into chaos, leaving the town drowning in scandal, debt, and distrust. From luxury trips funded by taxpayers to a personal security detail costing over $1 million, Henyard's lavish spending has raised widespread concern. Her ballooning police expenses, especially at a time when many residents struggle to meet basic needs, have only heightened criticism. For many, these financial decisions reflect how profoundly disconnected her leadership has become from the people she was elected to serve. Critics argue that Henyard treats Dalton not as a community, but as a battleground for control. Workers were allegedly coerced into spying on political opponents and gathering dirt on anyone who dared question her. This culture of fear and intimidation has deeply eroded public trust. Yet even as the backlash has intensified, Henyard has repeatedly deflected blame, calling the criticism politically motivated and insisting she's being targeted because of her gender, claims that many view as insincere and self-serving. Meanwhile, Dalton's financial crisis worsens by the day. The town is buried in debt. Oversight is virtually non-existent, and the residents are growing increasingly disillusioned. The gap between Henyard and her constituents has widened alarmingly, as her refusal to acknowledge or address the damage only deepens the town's despair. The situation took a darker turn when the FBI launched a full-scale investigation into Henyard's conduct. A search of her home reportedly uncovered large amounts of hidden cash, casting serious doubts over her financial dealings. Authorities are now combing through her business filings, financial records, and the operations of a controversial charity linked to her, with possible charges ranging from embezzlement to wire fraud looming overhead. As legal pressure mounts, so too does the public's demand for Henyard's resignation. The freezing of state funds has further paralyzed Dalton, which was already buckling under a massive deficit. Basic services like street paving, garbage removal, and tree maintenance have gone unpaid, and the town's failure to complete an annual audit since 2021 has left its finances in complete disarray. Despite all of this, Henyard continues to downplay the crisis, insisting it's all part of a political setup. But with the evidence stacking up, her hold on power grows shakier by the day. Dalton now stands at a pivotal crossroads. Many believe that had accountability come sooner in Henyard's administration, the town might have been spared the downward spiral it finds itself in today. Instead, her persistent refusal to address mounting concerns only accelerated the collapse. Her time in office has been marked not only by financial chaos, but also by a troubling pattern of retaliation against anyone who challenged her authority. Workers, political rivals, and even local business owners who refused to comply with her directives reportedly face swift and severe punishment. One of the clearest examples is the case of Boeing Thrash, a former employee at Thornton Township. Thrash claims he was terminated after refusing Henyard's request to replace a township attorney with someone of her choosing. His story is just one among many legal battles now unfolding, with lawsuits accusing Henyard of wrongful termination, harassment, and abuse of power. Even more disturbing are allegations that Henyard weaponized the police force to silence critics. Multiple reports suggest that officers were dispatched to the homes of dissenters in efforts to intimidate and suppress opposition. This use of law enforcement to maintain political control has created a climate of fear, one where speaking out can mean personal or professional ruin. These actions have shattered public confidence, painting the portrait of a leader consumed by power rather than dedicated to service. As the FBI investigation gathers steam, attention has also turned to Henyard's former right-hand man, Keith Freeman, already charged with bankruptcy fraud. Freeman is rumored to be cooperating with federal authorities, a development that could implicate Henyard in even deeper financial wrongdoing. With each new revelation, it becomes harder to deny that Henyard's administration has thrust Dalton into a full-blown crisis, both financially and politically. The town is teetering on the brink, struggling to recover from the damage inflicted under her watch. But the people of Dalton are no longer just frustrated. They are demanding sweeping change. They want accountability. They want justice. And they want leadership that puts the community first, not personal ambition. The central question now is, who will step forward to lead Dalton out of this wreckage? Henyard's leadership has left the town reeling, battered by fiscal mismanagement and entangled in a web of scandals. What was once a hopeful story of transformation has now become a painful lesson in how unchecked power can poison public service. With an active FBI investigation, mounting legal battles, and frozen state funds, Dalton faces a reckoning that many believe is long overdue. Rebuilding will not be easy. It will require bold leadership, firm accountability, and a deep commitment to ethical governance, values that Henyard has repeatedly failed to embody. To recover, Dalton must clean house. Those responsible for unethical practices and financial misconduct must face consequences. New leaders must emerge, people who value transparency, fiscal responsibility, and the public good over personal gain. Henyard's time in office will not be remembered for the promises she made, but for the trust she shattered. Her legacy is now etched in scandal, corruption, and economic collapse, a stark warning of what happens when leaders treat public office not as a duty to serve, but as a vehicle for personal control. The people of Dalton deserve better. They deserve a mayor who serves, not rules, someone who can repair the damage and restore faith in local government. For now, all residents can do is wait. Wait as the FBI continues its probe, wait for justice, and wait for the chance to turn the page on this dark chapter. But with Henyard still deflecting blame and refusing to take responsibility, the road to healing will not be easy, and the stakes for Dalton's future have never been higher.